The third practice session for the 2024 Formula One Canadian Grand Prix complicated Ferrari's plans at the 4.361-kilometer Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve in Montreal. The SF-24 car was in difficulty compared to what was seen on track yesterday, despite the fact that the weather conditions were a lot better on Saturday. The sun even shines again on the beautiful Quebec track. The SF-24 cars are really well balanced without showing any problems at the aerodynamic platform level. However, the performance is clearly not there. With the mediums, the problems were undoubtedly fewer, while with the softs, they become a lot worse and make the Italian car substantially slow. The problem seems to lie in the tire management, especially with the red-banded Pirelli tires. In fact, it was not possible to hit the correct operating window. The first and second sectors of the North American F1 track caused the Maranello cars to suffer, both in the slower part of the first sector and in the chicanes of the second sector, where, in the direction changes, the SF-24 seemed anything but smooth. For this reason, various measures were taken in order to try to optimize the warm-up strategy. Ferrari had about 2 hours to understand and find a solution because the potential of the red car was there but had to be extracted, which unfortunately did not happen. Now let's take a detailed look at how the qualifying session unfolded for the Maranello team at the Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve in Montreal. Compared to the final free practice session, the weather conditions have worsened. It is not raining as the cars get ready to hit the track for Q1, but the temperatures are very low and the sky is quite dark. The two Ferrari cars take to the track with red-banded Pirelli tires, trying to take advantage of the maximum grip available. Bringing the compounds to temperature is not easy at all, and apparently a single lap does not seem to be enough. Charles Leclerc's new race engineer Brian Bozzi reports that generally all the drivers are complaining, struggling a lot with the tires. After putting together a first attempt that is certainly not exciting, they take a minimal break. A lap not to destroy the tires, and then back to pushing again. Examining the handling of the Ferrari cars, we can say that it seems decent at the moment, although the two SF-24 single-seaters continue to struggle a lot to hit the correct operating window. As with the final free practice session, the soft compounds just don't seem to suit the Italian car. Moreover, the heavy traffic and the continuous evolution of the track are making this first part of qualifying more complicated than expected. The track engineers of the Prancing Horse try to provide all the support to their drivers. Lots of suggestions to optimize lap time, to find performance in the points of the Canadian F1 track, where so far the Reds have suffered problems. When there are 4 minutes left until the end of Q1, the Ferrari drivers return to the pits to change tires, being able to use an additional set of soft tires. Interesting to see how neither Carlos Sainz nor Charles Leclerc accepts a change in load development at the front, as the SF-24 shows a very good basic balance. What continues to be lacking is grip. The activation of the compounds is causing significant suffering for the Ferrari drivers. Additionally, at this point, it would be worth understanding if the rear load of the car is sufficient. Fortunately, the Maranello team's drivers give their best and make it through, although the problems still need to be highlighted. At the end of the first part of qualifying, Charles Leclerc speaks up on the radio and points out the issues. He also mentions the traffic. It seems that the Maranello team has changed the warm-up strategy because, compared to the third practice session, it is able to perform much better between the first and the second sector, while losing performance in the last part of the track. Carlos Sainz's red car is already in the pit lane, ready to go out as soon as the light turns green. Rain could also arrive to complicate things further at any moment. The Ferrari drivers are super focused on trying to make the most of the session. The Monegasque driver leaves the pit lane 2 minutes later, and while he is on his outlap, his Maranello teammate goes for the first flying lap. It seems that the Prancing Horse has understood a bit more about how to activate the tires. The times they can achieve with less effort demonstrate this. Riccardo Adami and Brian Bozzi suggest several mapping changes related to the differential and power unit. There are many suggestions because apparently every little detail at this particular moment of qualifying can make a big difference. 2 laps to let the tires rest, and then back to pushing again. Charles Leclerc makes a mistake at the hairpin of turn 12. The Monegasque's car goes long, and the Ferrari driver is forced to correct twice, which obviously limits the lap time. Charles Leclerc asks if there is time to come in and fit another set of soft tires. It can be done, but it will still be a set of scrubs. The same goes for Carlos Sainz, who enters the pit lane and changes tires as well. In theory, there would be 2 flying laps available. However, Charles Leclerc believes the tires are not yet ready and thinks a preparation lap might be the best solution. In the end, he decides to go for it anyway, doing 2 full-throttle laps. The Spaniard follows his strategy. Unfortunately, things do not work out as they should. This means that the Ferrari drivers do not make it through and are both eliminated in Q2. 11th and 12th place on the grid for the Canadian Grand Prix are the result of poor tire management. After all, as we know, not bringing the tires up to temperature properly creates such scenarios. Insufficient grip and qualifying ends here for Ferrari in Montreal. Just for the record, George Russell clinched pole position at the Canadian Grand Prix with a stunning time of 1:12.000, achieved in the first run of Q3 with a set of used soft tires. The Englishman earned the second pole start of his career. The previous one was in Hungary in 2022, by setting the time just before Max Verstappen, who recorded the exact same time to the millisecond. F1 relives a sensational event that previously occurred in 1997 at Jerez during the European GP, which was to decide the championship. At that time, 3 drivers had tied: Jacques Villeneuve in pole, Michael Schumacher, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. The novelty in Montreal is therefore the resurgence of Mercedes with the much-criticized W15. George Russell played it extraordinarily, as the public expected Lewis Hamilton to break the pole record at Notre Dame Island. The 7-time Formula One world champion, however, is only 7th, though just 280 milliseconds behind his younger teammate. Lewis Hamilton was unable to get the new soft tires up to temperature, so he set his time like George did, with used tires. Max Verstappen is not disheartened. The world champion, aware that he now has a Red Bull that is no longer the unbeatable car, climbed to the front row. The Dutchman's talent once again made its mark, although tomorrow he will have to work very hard to keep the McLarens of Lando Norris, 3rd by 21 milliseconds, and Oscar Piastri, 4th by a 10th, at bay. We have some doubts about Mercedes' consistency in the race, but we are sure that Max Verstappen's challenge with the McLaren cars of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri will be very close. It's also worth pointing out that Daniel Ricciardo's performance with Racing Bulls was excellent. The Australian, shortly after the team from Faenza announced Yuki Tsunoda's renewal, showed his mettle and outpaced his Japanese teammate by more than 3/10, placing 8th on the grid. The Aston Martins are improving. Fernando Alonso is 6th with the AMR24, close to the leaders, while Lance Stroll couldn't take advantage of the only useful set of tires and ended up 9th, ahead of Alexander Albon's Williams, the last in the top 10. After all, the Canadian had touched the wall, and the team sent him back out since there was no damage except to the rim. It was inevitable that he would lose confidence.